Welcome to my photography class. In this video, you will learn about aperture and how it affects exposure. So first, what is aperture? The aperture on your camera is a hole that controls how much light comes through the camera lens to fall on the sensor. Inside your lens is a hole. This hole can go bigger and smaller, and this is the aperture, which is sometimes called the iris, similar to the iris of the pupil of your eye. F-stop or f-number is a method of describing the size of the aperture in each lens. There is a confusing thing about this f-stop scales. The smaller the f-number, the larger the aperture, and the larger the f-number, the smaller the aperture. So, f2.8 is larger aperture and lets in more light than f11. More light is let in when the hole is bigger. This means that increasing the size of your aperture will make your image brighter. Decreasing will make it darker. So when you are in a darker location like shooting inside a building, you need to increase the size of your aperture to expose properly. And in brighter locations, you need to decrease the size of your aperture. Another thing is that not all lenses are made equally. So if you are using a kit lens, the one that came with your camera, your aperture might not open these wider f-numbers like f2 or f1.4. How do you adjust the aperture on your camera? This will depend on the camera you are using. Typically, there is a dial on your camera body or a button to press and toggle, which can change your aperture setting. One other thing with aperture, your aperture also affects other things like depth of field, which we will cover more in depth in the upcoming videos of this course. Very briefly, the depth of field is how much is in focus. What plane of your vision is in focus. A wide open aperture has a shallower depth of field, means a smaller part of your scene is in focus. A smaller aperture has a deeper depth of field, means the larger area will be in focus. So if you are shooting a wide open landscape and you want everything in focus, you will have to close down your aperture, making it smaller. If you are shooting a portrait and you want a blurry background, open up your aperture, make it wider. One more thing to keep in mind that if you are opening up your aperture, you are actually making f-stop number smaller. If you are closing down your aperture, you are making your f-stop number bigger. Now here are two shots of the same camera in the same situation with the same lens at different f-numbers. You can see here that the one that was shot with f22 aperture, everything behind the object is still in focus. The depth of field is very deep, compared to f1.8 shot where everything behind the object is very out of focus. Now I hope you understand what aperture is and how it affects exposure. For now, go out and practice changing your aperture settings to see how it changes your exposure and your depth of field. Good day.